Hello, just realized my mic was probably on during the whole countdown. You guys no doubt heard me typing if you were here, or if you're watching it on YouTube. Hello, welcome. This is Challenger Tabletop. I'm Christopher, and it's another painting stream. Just finished a cold, miserable, rainy winter day working outside doing construction, and I'm ready to relax and paint some miniatures with you. So hopefully you're also doing some Warhammer hobby or whatever kind of hobby you like to do, and I'll keep you company while I talk today about Space Marine chapters. I was talking about the first founding chapters last time, plus the Crimson Fists and Black Templars. And today I thought I would talk about some of the less common but still somewhat well-known Space Marine chapters besides those. And my light's kind of flickering. Hopefully it doesn't bother you guys, but it's bothering me a little bit. Anyway, haven't had a lot of time to get ready. Been kind of frantically making my show notes, so hope everything runs smoothly. I remembered to actually turn on my stream labels this time, so if anyone follows, we should see it pop up on screen. We've still got the Lonely Havoc showing, and maybe I'll just start with a shout out to some people who have followed the channel so far. On Twitch, first of all, Dr. Rhino, thank you so much for your encouragement. Definitely check out his channel. He's super awesome, miniature painter, also a 40k player who's on a mission to save the rhinos. Also followed the channel so far. We have Hydraxis, the Amish Stig, Paul Radcliffe, Zombified, Angerous Angel, Zombie Brush Studios, Eugene Green UO. It sounds like maybe someone went to University of Oregon. That's my alma mater. Big Boss Waztec, Kentucky Fried Creature, and The Lonely Havoc. Thank you for being my most recent follower. Well, today we are going to continue painting Gene Stealer Cults, and I was thinking I might try and power through my, let's see, what are these guys called? Oh man, that light is bothering me. I'm going to switch to my less intense light mode and see if that helps. So these guys I'm going to be painting are called Weird Vein Psychers, and I have a bunch of them to paint. I'm thinking I'm going to batch paint 3 of them today. So let's take a look at the miniatures. Here you can see the Weird Vein Psychers I'm going to be painting today, and I customized them by replacing the head of their staff with a Gene Stealer Cult's icon known as the Great Devourer. And these guys are brood brothers from my Gene Stealer Cult, which means they're Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard unit, which I can bring as a separate detachment along with my Gene Stealer Cult. And what they do in the game is they work together to cast a psychic spell every turn, and they can form a psychic conclave with a Primaris Psyker, which makes all of them have more powerful psychic power. Well, I'm going to switch to my painting cam here, see how well set up it is. See if it's actually running. Yes? No? There we go. Alright, here's the painting cam. Got my little logo there. Zoom in a bit and let's take a look at the miniatures. So my first time batch painting on the channel. Not sure how far I'll get in about 2 hours. Maybe I'll go a little long if I'm close to finishing them. Otherwise it might be a multi-day paint job on these guys, but I'm gonna try and power through. So let's get straight to painting. Gonna get my brushes out. Got my paint water ready. Got half a cup of coffee left. I've been drinking a French press of coffee to try to perk up after working out all day. I was pretty tired. All right, let's stand them up. You can see I primed them black and then sprayed some white primer from above, mostly trying to get a head start on painting the bases gray. And let's see, I think we'll use a large brush to start, or my, I don't know if we should call it large. It's my good old pagoda number 4. There you can see what the tip looks like. Oh, it's out of focus, but there you go. All right, going to start with some Administratum Gray. Going to water my paint down a little bit. And we'll get into today's subject or topic. And hopefully we'll get some people joining who can chime in on it. But we're talking about Space Marine chapters, other than the first founding chapters. And basically, what are your favorite other ones? And I was going to go alphabetically through the ones that I kind of knew something about, or at least was kind of vaguely familiar with over the years. And since we're going alphabetical, we're starting with the Angels of Absolution. A lot of Space Marines have chapters have angel in the title. Space Marines are sort of generally called the Emperor's Angels by some. We saw that in the recent Space Marine 2 trailer. The awestruck guardsman who looks like Michael J. Fox was whispering, "The Emperor's Angels," while he watches them murdering some, or cutting their way through some Tyranids. Alright, I am trying to really slop the paint on thick on the base just to sort of give a thorough coating to the sand and make the patches of sand look a little more connected to the rest of the base. I am going for kind of a ruined city base on these guys. My idea is like they're supposed to be walking across ground which is covered in rubble of collapsed buildings and ruins. Generally, the two types of board I play on for 40k are like city or forest. So I'm basically painting these guys to match my city board, which has gray matte. I did finally spring for a decent matte, although for a long time I was just using a piece of felt which I had painted with house paint and then sprayed with black and white spray paint until I was happy with the sort of blend of colors on it. Gonna try and make quick work of these guys. I am batch painting, so I'm gonna move on between all 3 models with each color. And I do suggest batch painting if you're painting squads of Warhammer miniatures. You know, you can often batch paint 5 or 10 models in maybe twice the time it takes to paint one. So it really is more efficient, just because you're not switching colors and you kind of get used to what areas of the model you're hunting out with each color. So the first one might take you a while with each color, but then each next one goes quicker. Alright, so the Angels of Absolution. They're a Dark Angel Successor Chapter. And of course the Successor Chapters began at the end of the Horus Heresy, when the Space Marine legions were broken up in order to prevent a few of them casting the Imperium into chaos again. And they're broken up into chapters of 1,000 Space Marines. And the Angels of Absolution are a Dark Angel Successor Chapter that paints their armor white or bone white. And I think they're pretty cool looking. Maybe I'll move the camera over a bit because I keep wanting to paint over here. There we go. So mostly, one of the reasons I started playing Dark Angels myself was because I liked the look of the bone white Terminators. And if you like that look, but you don't like having green Space Marines, you could go with the Angels of Absolution, and then you get to paint everything bone color, which would be pretty cool looking. Being a Dark Angel successor, they're one of the chapters known as the Unforgiven, because part of the Dark Angels chapter turned to chaos during the Horus Heresy, and all of the Dark Angel successors are trying to hunt down those Space Marines which turned traitor, and they're collectively known as the Unforgiven, the Dark Angels and their successors. Alright, well there's gray done on all three. Oh, I actually want to paint their jackets gray too. Then I'll wash them with a Agrax Earthshade to make kind of a gray-brown. So we'll just keep this brush going because their jackets are kind of large, so this brush will do well for covering them, and I don't have to worry too much about painting in the lines because this is the first color I'm painting. I can come behind this and do touch up with any other color. So I'm most familiar with the successor chapters of the Dark Angels because that's the because I play Dark Angels. I'm used to seeing them in the codexes, and I'll mention a few of them here today. But I think Angels of Absolution are pretty cool, and I don't know exactly a whole lot about what makes them unique among the successor chapters of the Dark Angels. I didn't do a ton of research for this. I just mostly was looked through and gave myself kind of a refresher on the pictorial list of Space Marines. It's a really cool website. I think it's on Lexicanum, and it basically is a little encyclopedic page of Space Marines broken into two sections alphabetically. That's quite cool because it shows you pictures of the Space Marines of basically every chapter. And it has been updated now with most of the new Primaris chapters that have been mentioned in the lore. So that's cool, at least the ones that we know what they look like. One of which I forgot to put on this list. There's a pretty cool purple and white chapter of Primaris Space Marines who have like candles and stuff all over their armor. They're very like pious, I guess worship the Emperor or something. I'm not exactly sure, but I forget what their name was. Angels of Redemption are another Dark Angel successor, and they paint their armor green and white in like a half and half pattern, where the left side of the armor is white, I guess, and the right side is green. And there are a few chapters that have their armor painted half and half like that, or split into quarters, which can look really cool, very striking on the model, and makes them a bit more interesting to paint than monocolor Space Marines. So if you do like the green and white and Dark Angels, you want to paint an Unforgiven chapter that has split armor color, then you could consider the Angels of Redemption. The Angels of Vengeance are another Dark Angels successor. You can tell they just named a bunch of them Angels of Blank. And Angels of Vengeance are one of two Dark Angel successors that paint their armor black, which I think is pretty cool. Although the fallen Space Marines that they're hunting also paint their armor black, so it is like a little weird, a little confusing. In general, Space Marines who have left their Space Marine chapter but kept their armor will tend to either paint the armor all black or at least paint black over their chapter badge. And they're known as Black Shields. And many of them fight in the Death Watch, we'll mention a little later. But I'm not sure exactly how common that's supposed to be, as Space Marines in general are supposed to be very loyal, and you don't think of many abandoning their chapter. But I assume that's why the Fallen are painted black. And I should have put the Fallen on this list. maybe I'll mention them now, or talk about them now. Because I don't have a lot else to say about Angels of Vengeance except their Dark Angel successor that paint their armor black and look pretty cool. But the Fallen, yeah, let's mention them. The Fallen are the Dark Angels who turned to Chaos during the Horus Heresy, although there are some Dark Angels players who claim that the Fallen are the real good guys, and perhaps that the Dark Angels are the traitors, which I am unconvinced of. But the Fallen painting their armor black is really, I would say, well, I suppose the Dark Angels originally did paint their armor black, so they did kind of leave their armor the color it already was. But the idea that Fallen Space Marines are no longer with their Space Marine chapter and paint their armor black is also kind of like the tradition of black shields. So it is kind of confusing that the Dark Angels are trying to hunt down black armored Fallen, who I guess were scattered across the galaxy when Caliban was destroyed and pulled into the warp. But it's confusing that the Dark Angels are hunting black armor Fallen. They have two Successor Chapters who paint the armor black, the Angels of Vengeance and the Consecrators. And also, any Space Marine who abandons his chapter also paints his armor black. It really seems like that would make their job pretty hard. Well, that's gray painted on these guys. I'm thinking maybe I'll paint black next. I'm gonna do black on their gloves and their pistols. At least one has a pistol. And what else? I might pick out a few more things that I see. Angels Sanguine. They're a Blood Angel successor, and they also paint their armor half and half. Half red, half black, which does look pretty cool. Alright, here we go. Maybe I'll move these guys. Painting black now. Gonna do their gloves. I probably should wait on this guy's glove because it got a little gray paint on it, but this is fine. Should I have done his gloves brown? I guess I could switch it up on one of the other guys. I do think I need to water this paint down a little bit. My black is running low. One of those colors you use a lot. I think I have a backup though. So Angel Sanguine being a Blood Angel successor means they presumably suffer from the Black Rage or the Red Thirst, which are the sort of Blood Angels gene flaws, I guess. The Red Thirst being a desire to drink blood, which is why people sort of jokingly call the Blood Angels vampires. And the Black Rage being the battle frenzy, where Blood Angels see visions of the death of Sanguinius fighting against Horus 10,000 years ago, and they sort of descend into murderous madness and join the Death Company, painting their armor black and fighting to the death, or seeking death in battle, I should say. And anyway, I think they look kind of cool with the half red, half black armor. Next up, an Ultramarine Successor Chapter, Aurora Chapter. And I'm not sure the best way to describe the green that they paint their armor. It's kind of like a bright grass green, and they're known for fighting with a lot of vehicles, I think. going to switch to the larger brush and paint a black rim on the base. Since I'm batch painting models, I think it'll be able to dry before I get back to this guy. Probably should have started with this. And I did switch to a thicker paint, not watered down here, just to try to get it to cover in one coat. So Aurora chapter, known for fighting with vehicles, I believe, like land raiders and main battle tanks and stuff like that. Sure, I must have been getting off camera there. Sorry about that. Trying to remember how to stay on camera. Well, there's a coat. I could probably go a little heavier there. All right. Black consoles. Black consoles. I don't remember what I was going to say about these. Oh, I think they were a Primaris chapter created during the Indomitus Crusade. So the Indomitus Crusade was when Guilliman returned to Terra after being woken up from his what do you call it, coma, I guess, or suspended animation. He's kind of like sleeping in a sarcophagus or something for 10,000 years, and got awoken by some Eldar in the Imperium's hour of need, I guess. And he made it back to Terra, and then he marshaled the Indomitus Crusade, which was I think attempting to reach the far side of the Imperium that had been cut off by the Cicatrix Maledictum. And so the Black Consoles were one of the new Primaris Space Marine chapters created to help with that, I believe. And it's kind of cool to have a Space Marine chapter that's created more recently. I guess that's all of the Primaris only chapters pretty much. But they have finally started to advance the 40K narrative. And so that's involved creating a bunch of new Space Marine chapters. And I think it's kind of neat to be able to pick a chapter that's actually currently being added to the lore, because it feels like a little more current. Some of the Space Marine chapters really do seem a little dated in that they haven't been mentioned much, so, you know, in the last 15 or 20 years, if they're not one of the first founding chapters or one of the other really well-known ones. The Black Dragons are a very interesting chapter, pretty well known among 40K players. And what makes the Black Dragons so interesting is that they have one of the most unusual genetic defects of any Space Marine chapter, in that they have like bone growths coming out of their wrists that are kind of like blades. So they have kind of like almost like Wolverine blades made out of bone coming out of their wrists. And Astartes bones, I assume, are super hard and practically unbreakable, so they actually can use them in as weapons against armored targets and stuff. And they have to modify their armor to allow for the bony outgrowths. And you would think that they would be like, you know, hunted down by the Inquisition or something as mutants, but they are a Space Marine chapter, so I guess they have some kind of protection, or someone, maybe the High Lords of Terra, are watching out for them. But if you want to do a Space Marine chapter, well, first of all, if you think Wolverine blades is really awesome, you could think about the Black Dragons. Or if you just want to do a Space Marine chapter that involves some, you know, cool conversions and is really different, They are one of the most unique chapters because of that. And they paint their armor black. Their chapter badge is a white dragon's head, which is pretty cool looking. Kind of a lot of chapters with black armor and a white badge, though, like the Iron Hands or the Raven Guard. And I think there might be one or two other with that similar color scheme in my list. I shouldn't have painted these guys base when I still had to do their gloves, because it does make them hard to handle. Hopefully I don't snap off their cult icon here. Really grown out my beard, just kind of didn't get around to shaving it. Would have done it after work if I had more time. I have one job, which is construction, where no one really cares if you're shaved or not, and my other job is working at a hotel desk where I'm always wearing a mask, so I have been getting a little bit lazy about shaving for that reason. I don't mind a 3 or 4 day beard growth, but eventually it does start to get a little itchy around the 1 week mark, which is probably about where I'm at now. Been enjoying my mustache. I really kind of like hated the idea of having a mustache for the longest time. I would say all of my 20s, I never want a mustache. I might have had one a total of maybe 3 or 4 days as a joke, and I always thought it looked kind of terrible. And I don't totally know why I came around on it either. I think I just realized it's like a way to not take myself so seriously, something like that. Okay, painting this guy's las pistol here, and I think I went a little heavy with the paint. You don't really want to slop paint on Warhammer miniatures too thick, of course, because it will clog your details and it does not look good to a trained eye. But if you do go a little thick, usually you can just come along with a little bit of water while the paint's still wet and thin it out a bit on the model. Usually that works okay. So continuing alphabetically, after Black Dragons, we have the Blades of Vengeance. Oh yeah, so they're another one of the new Primaris chapters, and they're a Dark Angel successor. And they're kind of interesting because they're a Primaris only chapter and a Dark Angel successor, and they look a lot like Dark Angels. So if you do want to play or create a Primaris only army, and you like the look of Dark Angels and want to play a successor, definitely consider the Blades of Vengeance. They have green armor, so Dark Angels green, and bone colored shoulder pauldrons with green trim. So you've got the classic two Dark Angels colors, bone and green, and they look pretty good. I don't know how I feel about the Primaris only chapters. I mean, I do like that they're part of the advancement of the lore, and I think it's quite interesting that they chose to go that route and create chapters that are completely composed of Primaris. I assume they did that to give something to collect for new players who are going to be only collecting Primaris and wanted to stay away from all the chapters that existed before Primaris, who presumably would have a mix of Primaris and Firstborn Marines. And the Dark Angels in particular were kind of resistant or suspicious or something of the Primaris. Untrusting, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. The Dark Angels hunt for the Fallen is a secret. So the idea that a ton of new reinforcements would show up as part of Guilliman's Indomitus Crusade would be a little bit unnerving for the Dark Angels because they have these secrets to keep. And presumably these new Primaris soldiers are expecting to get more or less filled in on everything. I just saw something I wanted to remove from the model. Oh, right here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but on his gun here, there's just a little bit of, what would you call it, flashing left over from the mold. I want to remove. There we go. That did it. So when the Dark Angels got their Primaris reinforcements, they didn't trust them enough to tell them everything about the about the Fallen right away. And I don't know exactly how that worked out with these Dark Angel successors that are purely made up of Primaris. Presumably every Dark Angel Successor chapter has an inner circle who are the ones who know about the Fallen. And I would assume that goes for the pure Primaris successors too, like the Blades of Vengeance. I think I probably want to paint their belt brown, or maybe black. Black's fine. Oh yeah, he's got kind of like a scarf around his waist. What color should I do that? Maybe I'll paint the skin first before I decide on the belt. Well, I've started doing it black here. Had a very interesting dream that I could fly yesterday, or last night. That was pretty cool. Okay, it looks like maybe he has a belt that's over a scarf, so I could paint it a different color. We'll go black on this guy's belt. I might do brown on some of the others. And he has some little belt pouches there. Alright, coming along. He has like some kind of medallion on his coat, some buttons. Looks like the trim of his coat could be another color. And he has like a astropath symbol here. I don't know, is this like a navigator symbol? I think it's the sanctioned psychers, whatever part of the Imperial organization they're a part of, that must be its symbol. I think I'll paint that gold. I'm fine with it being on the armor, even though he's a brood brother. I'm not worried about having some Imperial symbols here and there, because I assume they're sort of like part of their Imperial kit from before they turned against the Imperium. Nobody's going to be confused about what faction he's part of with his giant cult icon that he's carrying. Watered down my paint a little bit. Trying to give him some black visor there. I don't think the other guys have a visor. He's got a very ugly bare face, and so does he. A little less ugly. Alright, well, that's some black on the model. I think let's go for some Screamer Pink for their flesh tone now. That's kind of how I indicate the Genestealer cult for my army, is their flesh tone. And I do kind of keep to this black, gray, gold, silver kind of color scheme, so that the skin is like the most bright accent. So after Blades of Vengeance, we've got the Blood Ravens, and Blood Ravens have become a very well-known chapter thanks to the Dawn of War video games. Blood Ravens were created by, I think, THQ and Relic, the company that made the Dawn of War video games. And just like you're sort of encouraged to create your own Space Marine chapter at home to paint your miniatures in a unique way, Games Workshop has allowed a couple companies to create their own Space Marine chapter, and one of those is the Blood Ravens. They are a Space Marine chapter of unknown founding, which means they have never said which Space Marine chapter they are a successor of, and that means we don't know whose DNA was used to create them. Which of the Primarchs, I mean. And I imagine there's some theories about that. One theory might be that the Blood Ravens were created using DNA of one of the Chaos or Traitor Primarchs, which is not unheard of, and usually when it is used, they don't really advertise the fact. I'm trying to leave the wires on the back of his head gray here. I'll come back and hit them with maybe a silver later. And trying to just dab some paint in between them as best I can see. Oh, I'm gonna have to come back and do some touch up here. But that's okay. Well, that's about the shape of it, painting his face there. I will come back and add a highlight before I do a crimson wash. There we go. So the Blood Ravens are known for being kind of like thieving magpies, if you will. They tend to collect equipment that at one time belonged to other Space Marine chapters. And it's not exactly clear if they sometimes might actually steal relics from other chapters. Of course, in the video game, you're just always finding stuff here and there that used to belong to the Ultramarines or the Blood Angels or what have you, which in the video games is a way to sort of connect the game to the greater lore of the Warhammer universe and the other Space Marine chapters, but it's led to reputation as thieves among the players of the game. People will kind of joke that your Blood Ravens are actually thieves if you do play those and paint those. Of course, a lot of people tease you pretty much for whatever Space Marine chapter you play in one way or another. If you play a Dark Angel Successor, they'll say you're a traitor. If you play a Blood Angel Successor, they'll say you're a vampire. If you play a Raven Guard Successor, they'll say you're emo. If you play a Space Wolf Successor, they'll say you're dogs, and so on and so on. But Blood Ravens, their chapter master, shows up in the video games, and I think he even has a Forge World miniature. So you can play with the chapter master of the Blood Ravens, who is named Gabriel Angelos, and he's a very huge Space Marine, which I think they have that detail to kind of suggest that he could be one of the lost Primarchs or something like that, or maybe I guess one of the other theories for the founding of the Blood Ravens is that they were
created when one of the missing Space Marine chapters was purged. They may have been some of the Space Marines who either escaped the purge or were spared, and Gabriel Angelos could be, if not a Primarch, he could be a Space Marine who's old enough to actually know the truth about the chapter and their founding, and perhaps what befell one of the missing Primarchs. It's possible. Alright, moving on from the Blood Ravens to the Brazen Claws. Now, Brazen Claws are an Iron Hand Successor Chapter, and I don't know a whole lot about them except they do paint their armor quartered, which does make them very striking, and as a result I've noticed them over the years when I see pictures of them painted as figurines. And their armor is painted quartered red and blue, which looks surprisingly cool considering it's just like, medium hue, bright red and blue. Actually looks pretty good. And that's about all I know about them. But they have been around for a long time, and they're cool looking, and if you do collect those and paint those, probably some old-time players would recognize them on sight. Well, that's all the flesh tone. I guess it's just their heads because they're all wearing gloves. You can see our progress so far. I'm thinking the next thing I want to paint is their cult icons, because they'll start to look a little more finished as we block in most of the main colors. And I'm going to paint these cult icons gold, and I like to use this Retributor armor as a base. It's a very nice covering gold base paint. I'm just going to give it a shake. Next, alphabetically, that I wanted to mention are the Carcharodons. And I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Now, I thought the Carcharodons were the same thing as the Space Sharks, but I'm not exactly sure. Maybe Space Sharks was like their old name, or maybe those are two totally different chapters. But I think Carcharodon is like the genus name of the shark, and so they are kind of like the sharks or the space sharks. And they have a lot of interesting stuff going on with them. They are another chapter where you can get a miniature for their chapter master, who's very unique. His name is Tyberos, and his nickname is the Red Wake, which I think is like, if you imagine the wake of a boat is kind of like, a splash of water that runs behind it. He's called the Red Wake, kind of implying that he's running through, the battlefield, murdering people so fast that there's just like a spray of blood behind him. And his signature weapons are a couple of, I think, like chain fists. I think he has like a pair of, like a cross between lightning claws and chain fist, where normally a chain fist is like a power fist with a single chain sword kind of attached to it, or chain blade. But Tyberos has like 3 parallel chain swords on each fist. So it's kind of like lightning claws, where instead of claws you've got 3 chain swords on each hand. And I assume he's really brutal in close combat. I have never actually played against him, or maybe I don't think I've even seen him played. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen maybe a game on YouTube where someone was playing Tyberos. Maybe I have, but I can't really remember too well. But the Carcharodons, their story is that they kind of appeared from the edge of the Imperium, like from deep space. And it seems like they've probably been exiled in the past to deep space or like outside the Imperium. And then they were eventually finally returning from exile and like rediscovered by the Imperium. And their soldiers or their Marines have like white pale skin, and they're sort of inhuman. And I kind of get the impression that that's just from like centuries of being beyond the Imperium out in the void of space, or not exactly sure where they've been, but kind of like the result of prolonged isolation and darkness is kind of the impression I get. But in any case, they have returned to the Imperium now. Let's do his belt buckle, his Imperial symbol on his chest here. And the Carcharodons, I think, do have kind of a tribal kind of decoration on their armor, somewhat inspired by like Maori tribal tattoos from New Zealand or something. And so that's another cool thing about them. So I think they're quite a cool Space Marine chapter. And they're also one of the potential chapters that could be one of the Lost Legions. So not a lot of clues are given about the Lost Legions in the lore of 40K, but they are sometimes referred to as the Lost and the Damned, and the I think somewhere it says that one of them was destroyed and one of them was exiled. So I would assume that the Damned Legion was destroyed and purged, but the Lost Legion was exiled or lost somehow. And since the Carcharodons are returning from deep space, which kind of suggests returning from exile, they are one of the possible legions that could be the Lost Legion. That's one of the theories I've heard. Of course, Games Workshop isn't going to solve the mystery because it exists to create room for players to invent their own Lost Legion. Like, I think isn't Winter's 13th? Are they supposed to be like one of the Lost or Damned Legion or something like that? I'm not exactly sure. Or maybe the 13th Legion is already known. Maybe that's the Ultramarines. I'm not sure. Gonna go ahead and add some gold trim all the way around the bottom of his cloak here. He has a split in the back of his cloak, but I don't think I need to paint a trim all the way up that. In fact, I'm not sure even the bottom of his cloak needed trim. It looks more like it's just down where it gets buttoned. In any case, there's some trim on his cloak. Zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. He's coming along. Does look a little more finished now with the icon in gold. Moving on to the next guy here. And have we said enough about the Carcharodons? I don't think I know that much else about them. Tybros the Red Wake, they've been exiled. They're pale and inhuman. They could be one of the... They could also be like a successor chapter to the Lost Legion. If there is a exiled legion out there somewhere. They could have created the Carcharodons as a successor. Or, oh, and Tyberos is also another of these huge space marines who either could be maybe a Primarch or else maybe a space marine who's so ancient he actually remembers the destruction of the lost legions. Like, I assume Tyberos is so big because he's at least old enough to remember how the chapter ended up getting exiled. And I don't think it's ever been explained why they got exiled. Maybe someone can comment on that. I would not mind if the mystery of the Lost Legions was eventually solved, but I do think it's more fun to speculate about it. And I like when they just sort of drop a little hint here and there that doesn't totally answer it, but does give you a little more to go on. It's always cool. I wonder if I should paint these chains gold. I did on one of the others that I've painted already. So maybe this time I'll do the chain silver for this guy. Ah, he's got a cult icon here next to his hand. Let's paint that gold. Little tiny cult icon. So I think that's all I have to say about the Carcharodons. What's next? The Celestial Lions. They're kind of cool because they are a chapter that paints their armor gold. Not too many that you see like that. And they're an Imperial Fist successor chapter. They have gold armor with blue pauldrons. And all I really know about them is that they ran afoul of the Inquisition. I don't know if they were totally wiped out or something. Or if they're just being hunted, or were they exiled, or what? And then the Consecrators. Consecrators are another Dark Angels successor chapter that also paints their armor black, I mentioned earlier. And what's interesting about the Consecrators is that they are given a lot of the Dark Angels' really old heirlooms and relics from the time of the heresy and before. And that's why their armor is painted black and red. That's like the or black, red, and white. Those are like the original Dark Angels colors. So they've basically kept the Dark Angels colors from before the heresy. And that is super confusing when you're trying to hunt down Space Marines who dress exactly like that. The Fallen should just claim to be consecrators, and then Dark Angels would probably just leave them alone and be like, oh, okay, that's all fine. But if you do really like the original color scheme of the Dark Angels, and that's how you want to paint them, but you don't want to play Fallen, then you've got the option of playing Consecrators. I have seen some people paint up Consecrators. I've seen them online now and again, once or twice. So I know some people like them. Sure, let's give him a little gold trim on the bottom of his coat. Only takes a second. Using the edge of my brush here to make it really easy and quick to do this. There we go. Looking pretty good. One more to paint gold. Next up, the Death Specters. I can't remember if their armor is black or dark blue, but they are a chapter from the 13th Dark Founding. Is that really the 13th? I thought the 13th was the Cursed Founding, but I must have that wrong. Apparently the Dark Specters were one of only 2 chapters created from the Dark Founding. The other one being the Exorcists, who I'll talk about in a minute. But I don't know exactly all the details about the Death Specters, but they're cool looking. And they might be an interesting one to research on your own if you're curious. Next up, the Death Watch. Death Watch Space Marines are a totally unique chapter in that their Marines are borrowed from all the other Space Marine legions or chapters. So basically, each chapter of Space Marines will send Battle Brothers to go serve a period of time in the Death Watch and share their expertise with the other Marines there. It's kind of like I don't know exactly what you'd liken it to, but it's like, I guess, like an exchange program. And so the Death Watch is where all the Space Marine chapters get together and meet each other and work together and get to know each other's idiosyncrasies. And they wear black armor with one silver shoulder pad, or one silver pauldron on the left shoulder, which is covered in script. I assume it details great achievements of previous Marines who wore that shoulder pad, or maybe it's more like, I don't know exactly what's written on Death Watch shoulder pads, but I do know it has script all over it. And their right pauldron remains the same as their original chapter. So, Blood Angel Death Watch Marine would have black armor, left pauldron would be silver with script, and then his right pauldron would be red with a Blood Angel's chapter badge. And in that way, the Marines are able to identify each other as which chapter they're from. And I assume it also helps them recognize each other in combat quickly. And also lets them display their chapter badge with pride while they're not able to wear their traditional chapter armor. The Death Watch also accepts black shields into its ranks. So Space Marines who, for some reason, have left their own chapter can join the Death Watch. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing where they have to directly go straight from their chapter to the Death Watch, or if they could just be chilling out on some planet, they left their chapter, no one knows what chapter they're from, and the Death Watch shows up and they're just like, okay, you either join or die. I assume that can happen. And so some of the Death Watch, therefore, may actually be deserters or traitors from their chapters. And I think the idea is kind of like, your sins are forgiven if you just serve in the Death Watch for the rest of your life. Kind of like in Game of Thrones. How you go and serve in the Night's Watch if you've committed crimes, and you won't have to serve your sentence or whatever. Makes me wonder if George R.R. Martin might be a Warhammer fan. Now that would not surprise me. What do you think? Kind of has the look of grognard or a neck beard, a sort of middle-aged, not so in shape wargamer that we're all kind of used to, or at least used to be the kind of stereotype of the Warhammer player once upon a time, before the Henry Cavill era. All right. Thank you to guys like Henry Cavill and Stephen Box for changing the look of the Warhammer hobbyist. I'm happy that we're no longer assumed to be overweight and out of shape. I'm trying to do some sort of delicate trim now on his back of his neck. Maybe I can find an angle that makes it a little easier. And when I am doing some like real slight little detail like this, where you're just kind of trying to trace the brush along an edge and get paint on it, I do use the paint a lot thicker for that. I don't water it down because I don't want it to go everywhere. I want it to stay just where I put it, and I want to have enough on the brush that it comes off easily. Alright, well, we got gold paint on all of them now. I'll lie them down so we can get a look at them. Here's how they're looking now. Stretch for a second. Oh, I'm gonna be sore tomorrow. I've done now 2 days in a row that were about 7 to 8 hours working outside, carrying tool belts up and down tall ladders, carrying ladders around. Good exercise though. I'm definitely enjoying getting a workout and getting paid for it. But house I was working on today was like a 3-story house. It was raining all day. House was on a slope. All of that makes it dangerous. So I was thinking about getting another job today while I was working, just because it was wearing on me. All right, what's next? Death Watch. I don't think I have much else to say about the Death Watch. They have like watch masters who are like the captains of them. I don't know who's the supreme leader of the Death Watch. I assume it's just one Marine who's in that position for life. Well, anyway, next up is the Exorcists. So they would be the other chapter from the Dark Founding, along with the Death Specters. And the Exorcists are a totally unique chapter because they go through a weird kind of training where every Exorcist Marine is like intentionally possessed with a demon and then has to exorcise the demon. Excise? I don't know exactly what the word is there. But they have to cast the demon out, and then presumably after going through that experience, they are more resistant to demonic possession, and they're kind of a Marine chapter that specializes in anti-demon incursions, or anti-demon fighting, I guess you'd say. Next, I think I'm going to go ahead and highlight their skin tone here. So I'm going to mix up a pink with White Scar and Screamer Pink. And I think I'm going to use my small base brush for this. I do a lot of my painting with this small base brush. It's pretty much my go-to. You can see it's getting a little bit fishtailed. That's where the very tip goes off at an angle. And that's probably because I don't treat my brushes perfectly, but it's still working all right for me. Always want to start with the white, just so you don't pollute your white by dipping in it second. Won't take a lot of pink to highlight these guys because I'm really just doing the head and that's it on each guy. And my paint's a little watery, which is not good for a highlight because you don't want watery paint to flow into the cracks and crevices like a wash when you're trying to do a highlight on the model. Okay, I think I got the paint at a good consistency here. So we just talked about the Exorcist chapter of Space Marines. And they're like anti-demon, anti-chaos Space Marines, who presumably are sent to repel chaos incursions into the Imperium. Along with a couple other chapters that we'll mention soon, like the Grey Knights. But next I was going to mention the Fire Angels. They're not a super well-known chapter, but they are one I've read about in the past, just like on wikis and stuff. I think they paint their armor white. I was thinking about painting them actually for a while. I took a long time reading about Space Marine chapters, trying to decide which chapter I wanted to paint before I settled on Dark Angels, in fact, I think, now that I'm remembering back. And the Fire Angels, I thought they were maybe like wiped out by a disaster, but I might be thinking of the wrong Space Marine chapter. There was one that got like lost in the warp, and some people speculated that they could have turned into the Legion of the Damned. But the Fire Angels did participate in the Badab War. Badab War was one of the most famous conflicts in the aftermath of the Horus Heresy that involved Space Marine chapters turning against the Imperium. And I think there were like maybe 3 or 4 Marine chapters that joined the Tyrant of Badab to resist taxation by the Imperium or something like that. And I think the Fire Angels were one of the ones that were sent to go put them down, pacify them. And I can't remember, did something terrible befall the chapter? Might have to research that on your own. I'll go ahead and move on to the Flesh Terrors. Flesh Terrors are very well-known Blood Angels successor chapter. Blood Angels are known for their Black Rage and their Red Thirst, and the Flesh Terrors kind of take that to an extreme. They're known for going into kind of a battle frenzy, I think. And I think they have similar coloration to Blood Angels. I think they have red armor. There's a few of those Blood Angel successors that are pretty brutal and violent like that. Flesh Terrors and Blood Drinkers spring to mind. And they're both, I think, pretty similar to each other. But yeah, I'm not super expert on Blood Angel successors. I don't know as much about them as even I do about Dark Angel successors. But moving on, there's the Fulminators. Now, I believe the Fulminators paint their armor white and are a Primaris chapter. Am I remembering that right? Because I think I've seen some really cool painting tutorials on painting Fulminators. All right, we're going to move on to silver here, if I can find it. Here I've got some Iron Hand steel. Gonna give it a shake. Oh, no, wait. Fulminators, I think, are actually an Ultramarine successor who maybe paint their armor blue. And I think they're kind of like, almost like a Primaris Ultramarines. One of the chapters created by Gilliman, who is also of his gene stock. And I think their symbol is like a lightning bolt, now that I think about it. And they were one of the Primaris only chapters that was new when the Primaris got created and introduced to the storyline, they were one of the ones that kind of got more center stage attention in terms of seeing them in White Dwarf magazine and rule books and stuff like that. Alright, now we're painting the silver hardware that's installed on the back of these guys' heads. And this is kind of like the visual shorthand that tells you that these guys are psychers. The fact that they just have a ton of wires going straight into their head. Pretty small details. Maybe I should have gone to a smaller brush for this. But I guess I figured because the details were kind of raised up, I could just kind of hit them with the side of the brush without too much difficulty. And it would go a little faster with the medium brush than the small one. Or with the base small than with the, what is my other one called? Layer small. I haven't painted his belt and pistol holster. I'm thinking I'm going to do those brown just for a little bit of variety. I probably do want to paint the actual staff of his icon silver here, so I'm going to try and do that pretty carefully. Nice thing is it's gray, so if I miss a little bit, it will kind of blend in with the silver. So yeah, Fulminator's actually an Ultramarine successor, I'm pretty sure. And be like a cool chapter to paint if you had like an all Primaris army that included Guilliman. Oh yeah, and shoot, there is something kind of like the Death Watch where all the Space Marine chapters were fighting together. It was something that happened during the Indomitus Crusade, where Guilliman had taken command of the Primaris Space Marines. I'm not sure if it was at Earth or what, but it was at Earth that he was mustering for the Indomitus Crusade. And he had all these Primaris who were not really battle tested. And he wanted to kind of blood them during this campaign, but also have them be like the center of his battle line, I guess. And so he formed them into a kind of temporary organization. So it wasn't exactly a Space Marine chapter, but he had all the different Primaris Marines, or at least Primaris Marines that were created from the gene stock of all the original founding chapters, fighting side by side in one organization. And they basically painted their armor the colors of each of their chapter. So Blood Angels were red, Ultramarines were blue, etc. And then on top of their chapter badge, they had like a gray chevron painted. And for a while, I had a hard time figuring out exactly what that chevron looked like. Was it up, down, 1, 2, etc.? And what I eventually saw it depicted as is like a thin gray chevron pointing upward, so kind of like a mountain or a pyramid. Oh yeah, we're going to do these chains silver. And that was painted just right on top of their chapter badge, so you could still see the badge underneath. So it'd be like a Blood Angels chapter badge, which is the black wings with the black blood drop. And then it would just have like a gray chevron painted on top of it. A chevron's just like an angle made from two straight lines, like the top of a pyramid without the base. There we go. But yeah, so Fulminators. Golden Griffins are another chapter that paints their armor gold, which is pretty rare. You don't see that too often. And the Golden Griffins are a chapter of unknown founding, but they have been around a long time. They're one of these sort of classic chapters that goes way back to maybe 2nd or 3rd edition rulebook, probably, or Space Marine Codex, I would imagine, more likely. And I don't know much about them, but they're one that I've seen around a lot over the years. Not that I've seen a lot of people paint them. Probably never seen anyone paint Golden Griffins, but if you did paint them, I think probably a few players would recognize them on site. Oh, hey, we got someone in chat here. Sorry I didn't see your chats right away. Oh, you were talking about the Exorcists. Welcome, Angerous Angel. Good to see you again. I gave you a shout out at the start of the stream. Hopefully you're still here. And you're saying the Exorcists thinks they changed their lore to be Ultramarine successors. What were they before? They're not one I know a huge amount about. Of course, I know just that they get possessed by demons during their training. Oh yeah, good, you're still here. Blood drinkers are calm. It's the flesh tearers who go into super battle rage, okay. Oh yes, okay, Exorcists used to be unknown founding, which kind of suggested maybe even Traitor Primarch. Cool, good to have you in the chat. Look forward to hearing about some of your favorite non-first founding Space Marine chapters. We've been going alphabetically, so we talked about a bunch of Dark Angel Successor chapters, and some of the others we mentioned: Aurora chapter, Black Consuls, Black Dragons, Blood Ravens, Carcharodons, Celestial Lions, Death Specters, Death Watch. That's what came before Exorcists. So now you're pretty much caught up. And we were just coming up to Grey Knights. I know they hardly belong in this list of second string Space Marine chapters, as they're pretty important. Grey Knights are the demon hunter specialists of the Imperium, or of the Space Marine chapters. And I don't know where the Grey Knights get their gene stock from. Do they get it directly from the Emperor? They have their home base on Titan, I believe, which is a moon of Jupiter. Is that right? Angel's Penitent. So Angerous Angel says Angel's Penitent are one of his favorite. What do you know about them? Are they Dark Angel successor? Let's see here. Grey Knights have silver armor, and they're all psychers, which I guess would make sense if they get their gene stock from the Emperor, who is also a powerful psycher. And I would maybe say that Grey Knights are like the most elite troops of the Imperium next to the Custodes, which I did not put anywhere on this list, as I don't think they really quite qualify as Space Marines the way Grey Knights still do. And you know, the thing about Grey Knights is they're really lacking Primaris Marines. I guess that's because the Primaris Marines were made from the gene stock of the original Primarchs, which would not have included the Emperor's own DNA. So I wonder what's going to happen with Grey Knights. So Angerous Angel says, is it Angerous? Angerous. It's got to be Angerous, right? Angerous Angel says the Angel's Penitent are a Blood Angel successor that used to practice the arts
like other chapters, but it's punishable by death, and their chaplaincy runs the chapter. Ah, interesting. That's very unique. One of the coolest things about these sort of lesser known Space Marine chapters is that a lot of them are mentioned in the lore or the novels from time to time. And if you do happen to play one of the lesser known ones, it's always really cool when you actually get mentioned somewhere, and fun to like track down the book where your Space Marine chapter shows up, or you get to actually see them fleshed out a bit. I'm a Dark Angels player. Have you painted Blood? Have you? I guess what chapter do you play? Do you play Space Marines, Angerous Angel? I assume you've got to play a Blood Angel Successor if you do. All right, I think we run out of silver on this guy. I'm batch painting 3. What do you call these guys? Weird Vein Psychers. And as you can probably tell, I'm converting them to be Brood Brothers for my Gene Stealer cult. So Angerous Angel says he plays Blood Angels with a combat patrol of Flesh Terrors. Oh, that's awesome. I love when people have 2 different detachments of different Space Marine chapters. I always remember a White Dwarf cover illustration. Maybe you've probably seen it if you've been around the hobby a while. That has a bunch of Space Marines and Scouts walking down a staircase, and it's like a mix of Dark Angels, Ultramarines, Space Wolves, and they're like the old-fashioned Scouts who with like mohawks and like Native American face paint over their eyes and stuff. But I just love that image of multiple chapters working together, and it's always made me want to do some kind of something like that. And of course, you also see that in Death Watch, and where else? Oh, in the Indomitus Crusade, you had Marines of different chapters working together under Gilliman. All right, what am I going to paint next? Oh, I think brown, because I know a couple of these guys, I didn't paint their belt yet, and that was probably going to be brown, so seems like a job for my smallest brush. Yes, it was definitely a Rogue Trader era illustration. I think you're right. You've seen it. It's like a little bit old-fashioned looking for like the look of the Marines and the Scouts, but it always stuck with me as cool that they were different chapters were working together. And you haven't seen that too often since then, with just those few kind of notable exceptions. Then again, there is that there is also a board game. Tell me if you noticed this a couple years ago. They came out with a board game with Space Marines where you have like maybe 5 Space Marines who are all from different chapters, and they're working together on a mission like a kill team. And it was available at like Walmart and other kind of like normal stores, and it was pretty clear that like Games Workshop had made Space Marines into a board game specifically to sell in these other venues. Dark Angel, huh? Angerous Angel says, I'm trying to get the lion model from Forge World. That is a sweet looking model. Why haven't I tried to get it? I guess I'm holding out for a 40k lion. Instead, I've been just going crazy buying models for my Gene Stealer cult. I would say and my orcs. Those are my 2 most recent ones I added. Space Crusade, yeah. It's kind of in the style of Space Crusade. Space Crusade, of course, was a
board game, like the original Space Marine board game, kind of like what I just described. And it's almost like a legendary game among the 40K community. I've never played it. I don't have a copy, but it would be cool to get one. Space Hulk? No, it's not Space Hulk. It's a much smaller game, and it only comes with 5 Space Marine miniatures. And I think they're specifically like Salamander, Imperial Fist, an Ultramarine, a Blood Angel, and like a Space Wolf maybe? And they're all just like Firstborn Marines, so it would have come out, I think, right before Primaris hit, probably. So it's relatively new. I didn't buy it, but I've seen it on store shelves. Space Marine Heroes. Space Marine Heroes, I think, is like a blind box set where you just kind of collect random Space Marines. This was definitely like a board game. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called. But you've mentioned some great ones. Yes, they probably have it at Barnes & Noble. That's like the kind of place it would sell. Space Marine Heroes, is that what it's called? Or were Space Marine Heroes an expansion set for this board game? Space Crusade, though, is a game from way back in the day that introduced Rainbow Warriors, right? Oh, okay. Angerous Angel says they took the Space Marine Heroes from the blind boxes and put them in a board game, which might also be called Space Marine Heroes. I actually bought the Space Hulk board game that came with Blood Angels, the most recent one. Came with a bunch of amazing Terminator models, and I got them for converting to Deathwing, Dark Angel Deathwing. And that was actually how I really got back into 40K, because I had a bunch of like half-assembled, unpainted Marines in drawers and stuff like that at home, and I saw they had re-released Space Hulk, and I think that was around the time I was trying to decide which Space Marine chapter I wanted to paint, and ultimately I decided to go with Dark Angels and get Space Hulk and convert them all into Deathwing. So I chopped off... Oh, it's called Space Marine Adventures. Thanks for figuring that out, Angel. That's I'm glad the mystery is solved. So yes, Space Marine Adventures is yet another case of seeing Space Marines of multiple chapters fighting side by side. And I seem to remember one of the Space Marines says it would have bothered him too. I think one of the Space Marines in Space Marine Adventures is like a White Scars captain or something, which is funny. I seem to remember or I get the impression that they're all on some kind of suicide mission, and it's like a bunch of Space Marine chapters were all coordinating as part of some kind of campaign, and there was some mission that seemed like maybe they should just send a small squad, but for one reason or another they couldn't decide on which Space Marine chapter would send the squad, so like everybody volunteered one guy. Seems like a reasonable plan for a suicide mission, right? That way it only costs each chapter one Marine if it fails. And for some reason, one of the captains was like, no way I'm sending one of my men on a suicide mission. I'll go myself. I think it was the White Scar, if I remember correctly. But I thought that was pretty great. Okay, so now that we've got these guys pretty much base coated, I need a suggestion on what color to paint their scarves. They have kind of like a scarf wrapped around their waist. You can see it well on this guy. It's kind of, well, it's down here. And it has like some little frills at the bottom. But I haven't decided what color I want to do it, because I mostly kept the colors on these guys pretty neutral, so that the pink would be like the accent on the face. So the coats are going to be gray but with a brown wash, so they'll come out looking kind of like a dirty gray brown, and then the brown belt will darken up a bit. I've got some black gloves. I could do black, that would kind of keep them neutral looking. Dark Angel's green. I have used green as an accent color on these guys before. Like if I'm gonna do a weapon scope, I'll usually go green, bright green. But dark green would be better, I agree, for a big area like this, because it wouldn't be, oh, wait, I've got it. This is kind of outside the box, but I have been using yellow as a kind of theme color for these guys. Let's see, I don't have anything on my desk that's handy to show off as an example, but the idea is that they're called the Cult of Transcendence because they're based on Transcendence Moon. And when the moon was attacked and more or less abandoned by the Imperium, the Genestealer cults took over all of its hives, had like 8 or 10 hives, hive cities. So I guess each of those hive cities is kind of got its own, probably its own patriarch or something, its own cult. But I was thinking that yellow was a good color for the Cult of Transcendence because it's kind of like, transcendence sounds kind of positive and good and maybe divine, and yellow seemed to fit that as like a sort of a nice happy color. So yeah, maybe I'll do these yellow. Let's give it a try. That's what I was using for the banners and stuff, so it would also tie in with the other miniatures that I've painted for this faction. So we're gonna do Averland Sunset as a base, and then I'll do a brighter yellow on top of that. And I can't really shake this one up, the paint's too thick. Alright, I have decided that. Shall we continue past Grey Knights? I don't know if there's much else to say about Grey Knights. They're psychers. They're secret. I guess a couple of other things I could mention about Grey Knights. They're totally kept secret, so supposedly anyone who even like sees them gets executed or mind wiped. Probably executed if you're like an Imperial citizen, but mind wiped if you're like an important space marine or something. And I don't know if that's really totally I mean, like, I don't know how much sense that makes in the lore, because presumably someone has to notify them that there's like a demon incursion for them to even show up. And if they're totally secret and no one knows about them, I don't know how that would happen. Well, there you go. That's kind of what it'll look like. And since I'm already using gold on the miniature, this yellow will also be like a similar color accent, so it's not going to draw too much attention away from his pink skin and so forth. But Grey Knights are supposedly kept secret, and I guess that's for their own protection, I would assume. And then there's that infamous story about the Grey Knights. Did you ever hear that? It was a piece of lore written by Matt Ward for like a Grey Knights Codex that had people kind of up in arms and turned a lot of people into Matt Ward haters. And what I'm referring to was yes, it was retconned. So I guess it's no longer considered official lore. But what made everybody so angry was that yep, we got to go to a smaller brush here. Matt Ward wrote a story or like a short anecdote in the Codex where, in order to sort of power up to kill some chaos, the Grey Knights had to murder a bunch of Sisters of Battle, or Adepta Sororitas, which is something that's just totally out of character. Like, here they are, risking their lives, trained their entire lives to confront chaos, and then, you know, in basically totally selfless. And they're killing Sisters of Battle. It just didn't really follow. Plus, it was like just sort of like bad taste. But Angel says they killed Sisters of Battle and bathed in their blood because it was more pure. Yeah, exactly. And because some Grey Knights fell to Khorne. See, that's interesting because I kind of read the story a little differently. I almost felt like it was Chaos Taint that would make them do something like that. Like, they might convince themselves that they're purifying themselves by killing Sisters of Battle, but subconsciously they're doing it because they have been tainted. That was kind of how it seemed to me. But yes, thankfully that story has been struck from the Imperial records, as it were. And we no longer have to consider it canon. But you can always bring it up to every single Grey Knights player to annoy them. Or to tease them about it, as we were talking earlier about how no matter which chapter you play, you're going to get teased by somebody about something. Is there a chapter that nobody teases you for playing them? Maybe Iron Hands? If you're teased for playing Iron Hands, it's probably going to be that you picked them for game advantage because their rules are pretty good. See a lot of players winning tournaments with Iron Hands over the years. So let's see, that's Grey Knights. Let's zoom out a little bit. After Grey Knights, Hawk Lords. Hawk Lords have purple armor. They're I think they've been around a long time, and their thing is like aerial combat and aircraft. Man, I wonder if there's some Hawk Lords players getting hit hard by the new rules that limit you to only 2 aircraft per detachment. I feel like somewhere there's a Hawk Lords player who's got a whole army of aircraft who's just like, well, I quit. But the aircraft I could totally see in a Hawk Lords army would be the Fire Raptor. I have a friend with 2 Fire Raptors, and he was going to run them both as Black Legion, because that's kind of his main army. But and I guess that was what he bought them for, but he's recently started Imperial Fists, and he's been having a lot of fun playing Imperial Fists, and Fire Raptors are really good for fists because they have a bunch of bolt weapons on them, and Imperial Fists are like super strong with bolters. So he's painting one yellow as we speak, probably. I think he has it just about base coated. Last time I saw a picture of it. And I don't know much else about Hawk Lords, but they look pretty cool. Sounds like my roommate's getting home. Next up, Howling Griffins. Howling Griffins are another chapter that has their armor painted in quarters, red and yellow. Let's see here. Angel says, in 7th edition, I stopped playing Blood Angels and switched to my sister's army because my collection at that time didn't have tactical squads, only assault squads. Did assault squads go from being troops to fast attack or something like that? I assume it was something where you no longer had like a legal army after the change, which I could totally see being kind of discouraging, or like a good time to switch it up, especially if you'd been wanting to play Sisters for a while. Did you have to go all metal at that time for your Sisters of Battle? Angel says, yep, they were no longer game legal as a force. Yeah, I think it totally makes sense to have like an all assault Marines Blood Angels army. And thank goodness you can do that again, thanks to not having to run troops, depending on your detachment. Having trouble with my layer brush here. Getting like a split tip. That's quite annoying. There are some products you can buy to help kind of recondition your brushes, and I have mentioned I'm not the best at taking care of my brushes, unfortunately, so I am prone to having problems like this. But I have like a kind of how would you say, like a survival of the fittest approach to brushes. I just mistreat them all, and whichever ones can handle it are the ones I end up using the longest. So Angel says he had Sisters a few years since Codex Witch Hunters. So I believe that means you were playing them before the plastic Sisters of Battle came out. Which means you would have had to collect all metal, which was probably both expensive and meant that you didn't have a lot of poses to choose from. Most of my Sisters are pewter. Yep, there you go. Well, that was something you were one of the people probably hoping for plastic Sisters of Battle. I remember for years and years, when are we going to get plastic Sisters of Battle was like the cry from the Games Workshop fans. And then finally they came out with them. And I think that was around the time that I felt like Games Workshop was starting to listen to the fans. Angel says he didn't mind the models, he just wanted comparable rules for them. Oh, you know what, Angel? I actually got to play my first ever battle versus Sisters of Battle this last game. I think it was about, what was last week? I think it was Saturday, last Saturday. So was that only like 5 days ago, 6 days ago? It was super exciting. I played against Bloody Rose with my orcs, and we played a 1,000 point game. And my opponent, his name's German. It was my first time playing against him, and it was an amazing game, really fun, and he was a really great person to play against. Awesome sportsmanship. He was really nice to let me adjust the position of my models twice when I mispositioned them, and I tried to return the favor by letting him take a few things back or give him point out some things that he might have overlooked. And he won the game. I think he beat me by about 20 points, although we were tied at the bottom of turn 3. So that was exciting. Kind of felt like being tied at halftime. And then he had a really strong second half. He played with the commander of the Sororitas, Morven Val. And she was amazing. I killed her in turn 4. Very proud of that. But she was super scary. I think she wiped out 2 squads in hand-to-hand combat with her like sweep attack. And I knew it was coming. I knew she was super dangerous. So I wasn't shocked, but it was still awesome to see. And then she had some really good luck also with her missiles. I think in turn 3, she scored 2 hits with her missiles on my Bernabama, my flyer, which was also hard to hit. And helps that I think she can re-roll everything, or she nominated herself to re-roll everything. and took down the plane, which I think had about maybe 8 wounds left or something at that point. And I finally took the last wound off her with my Goth battle wagon. I rolled 3 attacks, or I rolled 3 hits on my attacks, I think. And I wasn't paying a lot of attention, and I think I either got 1 5 and 2 6s, or the other way around. 1 6 and 2 5s. But I rolled all those attacks out and failed to kill her. However, I had overlooked that Goths get an extra hit every time they roll a 6. So after failing all, or actually I guess after Morvenval made all of her saves, I remembered that I had missed getting my extra attacks, or my extra hits, and I asked my German if I could count 1 extra hit and try and wound with it. And he was like, yeah, go for it. And that last wound took her down. So, and he was a total good sport about it. And went on to win the game. So it's not like it lost him the game or anything. But yeah, super cool guy. And really cool to see Morvenval. And the other unit that just did amazing in that game were the... what are they called? They're the ones who have the eviscerators. They're like Penitent Sororitas or something. What are they called? And what am I going to paint next? Oh, boots, pants. Yeah, Repentia. Those Repentia were amazing. Oh, I guess I haven't finished silver on these other guys. I was going to paint the back of their heads with some silver. So the Repentia, Squad of Repentia had no problem taking out a battle wagon in 1 round of attacks. He had 6 Repentia and like a Repentia Superior, I think she's called. The one who's like their overseer with the whip, who's like urging them on. And I was shocked that their eviscerators were AP -4. Is that true? So my battle wagon, which normally has a 3-up save, got no save at all. Every hit went right through, and he used a bunch of Bloody Rose abilities to basically get extra hits, exploding hits, and stuff like that. So that was pretty impressive. Yeah. AP -4 on their eviscerators is awesome, and combined also with the extra strength it gives them. I think double strength, isn't it? So that was pretty cool. Yeah, Bloody Rose is nasty in melee, I've learned. They were a match for my Goths, for sure. I have been kind of having a little bit of a hard time being successful in melee with my Goths. Mostly I have a hard time reaching melee, and part of the reason is because so many of the ways that you score victory points now are all like alternatives to charging straight into combat. So you kind of have to choose, are you going to score VPs or are you going to go from combat? And in a 1,000-point game, I just had to focus on scoring VPs, I guess. Or at least that's the route I went. Angel says he chose Our Martyred Lady as his... What do you call it? What do you call those sub-factions of Sororitas? Can't remember. It's not like a house. Oh, a chap? No, it's something sort of religious sounding, isn't it? Oh, a lesser order. That's right. I'll probably just call it an order. Order of the Martyred, Our Martyred Lady. It was kind of cool to see the special rules that Sororitas have. It made them very interesting. One that I didn't know about until the game was that they, like all Sisters of Battle, or at least the Soritas, have an invulnerable save. I guess representing the protection of the Emperor. So that was quite cool. Gives you a lot of opportunities to say the Emperor protects when you're playing a game. Alright, we got the staff painted on this guy. Maybe I'll give him a silver belt buckle just for a little variety. Alright, and moving on to silver on the last guy. Oh, he was the one where I already painted the chains. Oh, am I done with silver? Oh no, I missed the back of his head. Well, continuing with the Space Marine chapters that are somewhat less well known. The last one we were talking about would have been Howling Griffins, who are red and yellow quartered. Somehow I think of them as like, I don't want to say it, ketchup and mustard Marines. That's always what that shade of red and yellow make me think, as it's kind of like they're painted like the colors of the classic plastic ketchup and mustard bottle that you would see at like every American diner in the old days. But yeah, they're pretty cool, and not a whole lot of Space Marine chapters that have quartered colors. And they're one of the ones that has been around for a while and is kind of like instantly recognizable to a lot of old-timer players. After them, we've got the Iron Hearts. Angel says both jump pack units can get a 4+ invulnerable faith save. It can be pretty nasty. Are you talking about Sisters of Battle or Howling Griffins? Oh, you must be Sisters of Battle because you're talking about a faith save. Yeah. I believe their jump pack units are called Seraphim, if I remember right. And that does sound pretty nasty. 4+ invuln. I remember Morven Val had a 4+ invuln, followed up by a 4+ feel no pain. And I was like, whoa, I should have brought Gazkul. Maybe I will next time I play German. But that was really hard to get through. A lot of stuff bounces off a 4+ invulnerable save, and especially when you follow it up with a feel no pain. So it sounds like the other one are called Zephyrim. And Celestine has to be in the army to get it, but yeah. So Iron Hearts, you remember them. So Iron Hearts were apparently mentioned in a short story called Hell in a Bottle. And what's interesting about that is there's like I guess it would be like a mistake in the story where the character who is presumably the chapter master of the Iron Hearts, in this short story he's referred to as their Primarch, and his name was Rubenek. So I guess this short story has also been retconned out of existence, but the fact that Rubenek was referred to as the Primarch of the Iron Hearts did lead some people to claim or speculate that he was in fact one of the missing or lost Primarchs, which did not make sense because the Iron Hearts were referred to as a Space Marine chapter, which would excuse me. And since the Space Marines didn't turn into chapters until after the Horus Heresy, that would have been long after the Lost and the Damned Missing Legions were already gone. So there shouldn't have been any mention of a Primarch, unknown Primarch, or new Primarch of a Space Marine chapter. It doesn't really make sense in terms of the chronology. But I like to think that it could be true, could be one of the missing Primarchs. Rubenek of the Iron Hearts. I do think the Iron Hearts sounds like a first founding chapter. Sure, we've already got the Iron Hands, so having Iron Hearts might be redundant if the Emperor was just naming his 20 founding legions. But we've got the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels, so it's not so weird to think that there could have been the Iron Hearts and the Iron Hands. And sort of the format of the name does seem to fit with the other first founding legions. So what do you think? Oh, you gotta go. Work in 7 hours. Well, thanks for hanging out, Angel. It was really fun chatting with you. Hope to see you in a future stream. Have a great night. Enjoy work tomorrow. Enjoy your hobby time and enjoy playing your Sisters of Battle and your Blood Angels if you still break them out from time to time. It was fun. All right. And thanks for following my channel. Super appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have some battle reports coming before too long. Still setting up my setup for live streaming battle reports, but we're getting closer. So anyway, I like to think that maybe the Iron Hearts are one of the missing legions. And maybe their Primarch was named Rubenek, and he fell to chaos, and that's how they became known as the Damned. And the rest of the chapter would have been wiped out and killed by Leman Russ. Maybe, I don't know what happened to Rubenek in the story. I think he gets possessed by a demon, which fits. And I also wondered if maybe his chapter could have turned into the Legion of the Damned. Let's see, are we to them yet? Just about. So after Iron Hearts, we got Iron Snakes. Iron Snakes are a Space Marine chapter that paints their armor silver and white with red trim on their pauldrons. And I believe their chapter badge is like maybe a blue snake, if I remember right. And they're known for liberal use of apothecaries in combat. So I think that back in the day, the lore was that almost like every squad of Iron Snakes would have an apothecary attached to them, whose job, of course, is to harvest the gene seed from every fallen Marine, and also to treat battle injuries and that kind of thing. And I always thought it was cool to have a Space Marine chapter that had more apothecaries. Seemed like it would be both cool in terms of the lore, but also cool on the table. Having apothecaries making all your troops more durable, bringing guys back to life and that kind of thing. Doing a little bit of a second coat of brown here, because my first coat didn't seem to cover totally. Usually I'm aiming to water down my paint, do 2 thin coats. Certainly when I think it needs it. So Iron Snakes are cool. Then we got the Knights of Griffon, or Griffon, and they're pretty unique in that they're a Space Marine chapter with orange armor, which you really don't see too often. I can't think of any others. So if you do like orange, you could definitely consider painting the Knights of Griffon. and figure out how you're going to pronounce Griffon so it doesn't sound stupid. Maybe it's just Knights of Griffin. I don't know. It's spelled weird, like Gryphonne. And then we've got the Lamenters. So I'm not sure if the Lamenters, I think they might be from the Cursed Founding. And I don't know if they're a Blood Angels successor or an unknown chapter of unknown origin. But the Lamenters are interesting in that they have like terrible luck, supposedly. And their chapter's been like nearly wiped out multiple times. I think maybe fighting orcs. And they paint their armor yellow with a lot of black and white checkers as decoration, which looks very cool. You used to see a lot more black and white checkers in the old days of 40k. You don't see that design so much anymore. You still see some hazard stripes, the sort of black and yellow parallel stripes, used pretty often. Like I just saw somebody painting their Black Templars today on Instagram with black and yellow hazard stripes. Looked very cool. But you don't see checkerboard used as much as you used to. Of course, except on orcs, where you still see it very often. But the Lamenters are a Space Marine chapter that you see it a lot. I guess Dark Angels also do a bit. And I assume the Lamenters also do a lot of like artwork or like telling stories or stuff. So they're sort of lamenting all the things that have happened to them. I assume that's also part of their lore. All right, next, the Legion of the Damned. Totally unique Space Marine chapter. The Legion of the Damned are almost like ghosts or demons or something, where they just appear out of nowhere, I guess out of the warp, on the battlefields of the 41st millennium, often where the fighting is at its fiercest or the forces of the Imperium are in most dire need. The Legion of the Damned will appear out of nowhere and lay waste to the enemy. They are Space Marines, but they're never seen without their armor, and it's not clear if they're just living suits of armor or apparitions or like actual like demons of the Emperor or what. There is a theory that since the warp is sort of a reflection of everything that happens in real space, the worship of the Emperor by countless Imperial citizens across the galaxy has given birth to a sort of chaos god of the Emperor, if you will, or a warp reflection of the Emperor and those who worship him, and that possibly the Legion of the Damned are like a demonic manifestation of that warp energy. Another theory for the Legion of the Damned is that they were a Space Marine chapter that became lost in the warp, possibly the Firehawks, and they're they became sort of like tainted by the warp and transformed and unable to return to real space except briefly, where they could kind of manifest in real space, perhaps where the prayers to the Emperor were strongest, and before being sort of banished back to the warp. But it's kind of cool that they are mysterious, and it's yet another mystery of the 40K universe that you can go hunting for clues about. And as models, they're very cool looking. I don't know if they still have rules in the current edition of the game. That is a question I'd like to answer, but in the old days they had game rules and some very cool models. They were like Space Marines with bones and fire designs all over them. They were kind of like skeleton Marines. And they definitely seem like a great conversion opportunity in that you could do some kind of like Ghost Rider style Space Marines with like skulls for heads or something like that. Hey, would you mind shutting my door? My roommate got home. Good to see him. All right, getting there. Doing the yellow scarf around his waist there. I am going to do a highlight on it now, but maybe I'll paint something else while that dries. Only one of these guys has some kind of tusks on his staff. Maybe I'll paint those next. Just going to slap a little bit of white scar on there. Going a little bit heavy with the paint because I don't want to have to do a couple layers on this. Trying to make it quick. So Legion of the Damned. If they don't have game rules, I wonder how it would be the best way to play them. Traditionally, they would just appear on the battlefield, so they were kind of like Marines that had a deep strike. And I could be wrong, but I think that Raven Guard still has the ability to deep strike with some or all of their units. So you could maybe play Legion of the Damned as Raven Guard. That might work if they don't have their own rules. There we go. Okay, I think we're pretty close to base coated on all these guys now. Maybe I'll just do a little bit of touch up on the gray cloaks. I know I had a couple spots I wanted to touch up. And I might have missed a little bit of gold trim also on some of their collars. Maybe just two of them. So going to use my smallest brush here to do a quick little bit of gold trim on the back of these guys' collars. Then I'll come back with my touch up on the gray. Oh boy, having trouble with my split end brush here. That's better. So what do we have next alphabetically after Legion of the Damned? Mantis Warriors. Mantis Warriors are a Space Marine chapter I've thought looked pretty cool ever since I saw them depicted in a codex wearing some like yellow camouflage for some kind of grassland planet or something. And I can't remember, but I think Mantis Warriors were also one of the chapters that participated in the Badab War. And participation in the Badab War, I have to say, is kind of like a real claim to fame for any of the Marine chapters that were involved. The ones that were traitors in the Badab War were not all destroyed or anything. I think some of them were just given like some kind of penance that they had to serve, like 100 or 1,000 year crusade or something. And then after that, they're back in the good graces of the Imperium. Trying to hit the buttons on his coat, or on his glove, I mean. Not doing a perfect job, but if I do hit it with a wash later, it'll kind of hide the mistakes. Also, I see he's got a little vial, maybe like a vial of blood or something, hanging from his icon, I'll probably hit that with some red paint, I guess. Or green if it's like alien blood maybe. Okay, he looks good. Okay, this other guy also had the back of his collar. Needed some little gold trim. There we go. And some pretty delicate painting here. All right. Oh, let's give him some buttons on his glove. And what's going on here? Okay. Oh, I think this other guy also has need of some buttons. Okay, Mantis Warriors. They have their armor's painted kind of like a hard to describe the kind of green. Kind of a yellow green, but not super bright. And they have accent color, I think, is yellow. And I thought they looked quite cool. They were one I was really considering before choosing Dark Angels. Next up, we've got Marauders. Marauders are like a yellow White Scars successor. And their symbol, I think, is a flaming sword, which looks pretty cool. All right, I think we are... Oh, we're going to do some highlight on the yellow. Now, I think I can just go kind of heavy with this highlight here. Maybe best would be to kind of dry brush it on, but this Flash Gets Yellow I'm using is one of the paints I have that sort of covers the worst. If it's watered down, it really doesn't cover well at all, and if it's not watered down, it has a tendency to really glob up and like look too thick. So that's why we took the time to do 2 layers of the Averland Sunset as a base underneath. Now I'm trying to get my brush dry enough to kind of dry brush this on, but it's a paint that really does not lend itself to dry brushing. It's like a very wet, translucent paint, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it's almost like no matter how much I try to dry my brush off, I can't get to a good dry brushing consistency with this paint until it starts to dry a bit. But we'll give it a go. Getting some yellow highlights here on the scarves that these guys are using as kind of like a decoration or an accent. Flare, maybe that's what I'm looking for. And what color do I want to use as a wash on this? Probably Seraphim Sepia. It's kind of like a yellowy brown, slightly reddish brown, orangey kind of wash. Should work. It's probably the best color I have for washing yellow, because I don't really have like a dedicated wash for this for yellow. If I was gonna pick one out, I would probably go for like a brown wash. I think brown is a good shadow color for yellow, and generally with a wash you're looking to add a color to the shadows of a area on your model. Well, there we go. There's some Flash Gets Yellow on top of the Averland Sunset. You see it covers pretty well now. Looks pretty good, I think. Zoom in a little bit. I think that's the best recipe for yellow that I've come up with. And then once it gets a wash, it should look pretty good. Let's see. I do want to hit that little vial. Let's just remember to come back to that. Next guy here. Flash Gets Yellow on the scarf. There we go. Oh, I had someone send me a text message today. One of my
I guess my roommate's sister's friend came by a couple weeks ago and mentioned that he was interested in Warhammer, saw my collection, and said he wanted to learn how to play. I said, yeah, totally, man. I love to teach you. I do have 4 factions, so I can definitely have someone over and teach him the game with, you know, a loner army. And he texted me today to follow up on that. So I think he sounds pretty serious about learning the game. Always happy to meet a new opponent or get someone new into the game so I have someone else to play against. And the fact that he was motivated enough to text me about it and I guess get my number, you know, a couple weeks after mentioning it, sounds like he's pretty serious. So that's exciting. All right, there's that guy done. Just one more. Or did we start with him? Okay. Here's the last guy. And I might want to do 2 coats of this yellow highlight as well, just to get the best coverage I can before I come and hit it with the wash to like darken it up. Shaking my camera with my paint motion there. So, shall we move on to the next Space Marine chapter? We talked about Mantis Warriors. Oh yeah, Marauders. I don't really have a lot to say about them. I don't know a lot about them, except they're cool looking yellow Space Marines that are not Imperial Fists. They're a White Scars successor, so I assume they're like into lightning attacks and probably pretty aggressive, unlike Imperial Fists, who are kind of like more slow and plodding and into like building fortifications and laying sieges and stuff. And yeah, I guess I don't know much about them besides that, but they seem cool. I'd recognize them on the table. Next up, we got Marines Malevolent, my favorite yellow Space Marines. Might surprise some people. So Marines Malevolent are the real Angry Marines. They're one I should talk about. Maybe we'll talk about them now. So the Angry Marines are a fan-created Marine chapter, which is kind of like a joke chapter of Space Marine. And the Angry Marines thing is that they're always angry all the time, and that's pretty much all there is to them. And I guess they're also like just ludicrous. So they have like people have illustrated Angry Marines launching themselves out of like a rack of missile launchers, like they're just gonna fly into the enemy. But the Marines Malevolent are actually a canon Space Marine chapter, who are kind of like the bad guy Marines who serve the Imperium. They're all about just having no mercy and like not pulling any punches. They like never miss an opportunity to like attack civilians in the name of the Emperor. And I just think it's cool that there's a chapter of Space Marines who are just like absolute bad guys while not technically serving chaos and in fact being, you know, technically loyal to the Imperium. So I thought that was always thought that was neat. And I think it would be pretty cool to play a Marines Malevolent. And the fact that they're, you know, doing bad stuff a lot of the time kind of would explain why they might run into conflict with other forces of the Imperium. And since so many people play Imperium armies, having a Space Marine chapter who's kind of like known for fighting against the Imperium sometimes gives you like an easy lore explanation for those kind of matchups, Imperium on Imperium games, which you know, when you're new to 40k and you start collecting Space Marines, it's
you know, not uncommon for you to end up playing against other people who also collect Imperium. These days I play collect 4 factions and play Dark Angels, Drukhari, Genius Sealer cults, and Orcs. So I always make a point of, if somebody else is playing Imperium, I play one of my non-Imperium armies, and vice versa. So I don't have to worry too much about ending up in those Imperium versus Imperium games anymore. But it used to be more of an issue, and my first faction was Dark Angels, so for a while there I would get sort of stuck in situations where I had to play Imperium versus Imperium. Okay, well, while I'm thinking about it, let's paint that little vial that's hanging from this guy's icon. This one. And then also, while I'm thinking about it, I want to paint the guy who has some pants showing. I want to paint his pants. And I'm not going to paint them yellow. Never wear yellow pants to battle. People will make fun of you. And what color do I want to paint his pants? Probably black. This is the guy in question. And you can see his pants there. And I've already painted his boots brown, so by process of elimination, I'm thinking pants black. But maybe I'll do kind of like a watered down black, so it kind of reads as like really dark gray. Should be fine. So watering my black down quite a bit, and that should also make this go pretty quick. And it will also cover up some of my sloppy paint jobs on adjacent parts of the model. Now, I guess I'm not going dark enough in that the gray is really showing through. So that's easy to solve. I'll just go back in the pot for a little more black. All right, there we go. And maybe I'll do the inner flap of his coat because it should be kind of dark. Well, there you can see how that's looking. I think it needs a little more black. It's still reading as a bit gray for my taste. Could let it dry and come back and do another coat. Actually, it's getting there. Let's just add a little more black paint and call it good. There. All right, black pants, done. Almost. There we go. All right, I'm happy with that. Zoom in so you can see how that's looking. I like it. It looks like they're black, but with a little bit of gray, just almost like a highlight. Okay. Well, what's next? Oh, clean up on the gray jacket before I come and do the wash. So finally going back to Administratum Gray here, and I'm going to use my smallest brush because we are coming in to do cleanup. And let's leave the guy I was just painting till last because that paint I was doing was very wet. So here you can see where I need to do some cleanup on the trim on his coat, and I need a fine tip on the brush for this. Trying to basically follow this edge and just get rid of some of that gold that went a little overboard. That's enough. Okay. And then maybe here on his chest, I also went a little wild with the gold and the yellow. Cleaning that up a bit. And where else? Back looks okay. Maybe here. Oh, gonna just follow that edge with some gray. And it's nice, it's not too hard to do this because the brush really can kind of follow along the edge of like a raised lip that I painted previously. Okay, oh, and here by the silver. All right, that is, oh, and I see also down here at the bottom, a little more of a tricky area to hit with the brush here. There we go. Didn't totally cover it, but the wash will help when I come back with that. All right, that's one model cleaned up. Moving on to the next. Starting on the back, this was the guy with the black belt. Like a martial artist. Not too much cleanup here. Looks like I did a pretty good job staying in the lines earlier. Oh, maybe along the trim on his coat, just like the last guy. The gold got a little out of hand there. There we go. Just using my eyes to look all around, trying to find little areas that I need to touch up. Here's one. There we go. Okay, I'm happy with that. And just the last guy left that we painted the black pants on. I'll give him a second more to dry. Take a look at what chapter's next. So Marines Malevolent, I didn't have much else to say about them. I don't know much about them besides they're evil Space Marines. They're yellow, and I like them. Next up, we've got the Mentors. So the Mentors have white armor with green trim, and their symbols like their chapter badge is like an eagle's head. And back in the day, I think the Mentors lore was that they would actually train other Space Marine chapters. And I'm not exactly clear if the other Space Marines would send someone to go operate with the Mentors for a while, and then he would come back to his chapter with some stuff that he had learned to like share with the other Marines, or if the Mentors would like send a Marine to go train with the other chapters or what. And I also don't know if that's still part of their lore or if it's been retconned, as they say, meaning like erased. But that was what I remember reading about them back in the day. I thought they seemed pretty cool. Like Marines who are just like super well trained, basically. And I think we're about good on touch up on all of these guys now. After the Mentors, we've got the Minotaurs. So the Minotaurs are another super unique Space Marine chapter. And they are Marines who specialize in hunting down and fighting other Space Marines. So I believe the Minotaurs are commanded by the High Lords of Terra directly. And if they have a beef with a Space Marine chapter, they will send the Minotaurs to go deal with them. And I assume usually the Minotaurs aren't dispatched unless they're being sent to actually, like, destroy or hunt down a Space Marine chapter. And when I've seen people model them, usually they have kind of like an ancient Greek kind of look with bronze everything and like round Greek shields for their storm shields, which is, I think, a very cool look. And a lot of times you see them fighting with spears, which is, I think it's called like a power lance, maybe. One of the very, less common power weapons. Usually you see the power sword, power axe, power fist, but there is also, I think, a power lance. All right, we'll zoom out a bit, and I think we're going to start putting wash on these guys now. I don't know what the chapter master of the Minotaurs is named, but I think there is a model available for him, maybe a Forge World model. And the Minotaurs seem like just a really cool chapter since they have that whole hunting down other Space Marines thing going on. They basically are like ultra badasses if their what do you call it? Enemy of choice is loyal Space Marine chapters or renegade Space Marine chapters, I guess. All right, so we're going to be doing ink wash now and deciding on a brush. I think I'm actually going to do this wash with my smallest brush because we're just doing the ink wash on their faces. And this is going to be Carroburg Crimson, which is my go-to wash for doing this Screamer pink on my Genestealer Cults characters. And if I think it needs it, I'll come back and do a highlight on the forehead, but I think this is looking pretty good. Their eyes are coming out kind of dark, so I'll just see if I can subtract a little bit of this ink wash with the brush. Put it back in the pot. Well, that's one. After the Minotaurs, other less common Space Marine chapters, we've got the Nova Marines. Nova Marines are another of the quartered Space Marine chapters, meaning their armor is divided into quarters between two different colors. So like the upper right and bottom left is white or blue, and the other quarters are the opposite. But yes, they are white and blue quartered Space Marines, and I don't know much else about the Nova Marines, but they've been around for a long time, and they're pretty recognizable by that color scheme. Alright, one more guy to put wash on. Hey, we're getting through it. What time are we? It's 9:30 Pacific time here in Oregon. So that means I'm about 15 minutes over my usual painting session. But that's cool. I've been looking forward to this for several days, and we are batch painting, so I'm not surprised it's going a little long. Alright, that's the wash finished on so far. Next, we're going to be going for probably a wash on the gold and the brown and the gray. So I'm not trying to wash the yellow yet, but I'm washing most everything else. Normally I would wash silver with Nuln oil, so but washing it with Agrax is just about as good. And it'll be a lot easier to do one color wash on the silver and the gray rather than try and separate it out, because washes tend to bleed really easily from one area of the model onto others. So basically I'm just going to be trying to wash everything except the yellow with this Agrax Earthshade. And so I'm going to start by going right up to the yellow, because that's kind of like the line I'm trying to color inside of. And this is going to give their jackets a very dirty brown look, which is what I'm going for. And it'll give the leather some good shadowing on their belts and stuff. And I do just want to be a little more restrained than I have been the last few times with this wash. I've been getting some puddling on my jackets and cloaks and stuff that I usually try to avoid. And here I go, slopping it on super strong again. Trying not to have it bleed together with the Carroburg Crimson from the face, because I don't want pink on the jacket. Not what I'm going for. Going super heavy on the gun, because most of the raised details are what's in silver. And we're going to wash the icon with this. I think it looks pretty nice on gold. And we'll flip it over and try and use that wash on the back too. All right, what's next? Rainbow Warriors. Rainbow Warriors are definitely one of the old school and somewhat lesser known Space Marine chapters. And I believe the Rainbow Warriors harken back to the aforementioned Space Crusade board game. Space Crusade, I think the back of the box where you see how like the official paint jobs on the miniatures, I think Space Crusade was painted so it was also like a group of Marines from different chapters working together. And one of those chapters was the Rainbow Marines. Looks like I neglected to paint the back of his staff silver. Kind of an oversight, not a huge one, not super noticeable, but I might come back and fix that later. Maybe off stream when this wash is totally dry. But Rainbow Warriors are a chapter that was like mentioned a bit in the old Rogue Trader days, and then like they sort of stopped talking about them. And I think at some point maybe they explained that they were wiped out, or for some other reason like you stopped hearing about them. I assume they were wiped out maybe. But the fact that they're called Rainbow Marines, and that, you know, it's rainbow is so like an unspace marine, they always kind of like made an impression on people, and I think a lot of people sort of have some affection for them as sort of being so both old school and different in terms of their character. And I really don't know anything about the chapter besides that they were depicted as having like blue armor with like a rainbow stripe down the center of their helmet. So it's not like they were, you know, Technicolor Space Marines. They were mostly just like navy blue. But having a rainbow painted on your helmet is, I don't know, kind of cool. And I think quite a few people have actually decided to paint their modern Space Marine collections as Rainbow Warriors. Even though they're not really talked about in the lore anymore. And I think that's cool. Definitely a lot of people would be excited to see those if you chose to paint your Space Marines as Rainbow Warriors. So my wash is starting to dry on this guy a little bit, and I'm just kind of trying to spread it out and get it to cover more of the surfaces and puddle less in the crevices to get more of a brown to the cloak. And it's looking a little streaky. Some people I'm sure would not be impressed by the look I'm getting here, but it works for me. I am kind of a speed painter in that my goal is usually just to get my miniatures on the table and have a paint job I'm happy with. That doesn't take me too long to do. And we're getting there. Now we've washed pretty much everything except the yellow. Tried to keep the wash off the yellow. And I haven't really washed the silver on the back of his head because I didn't want to bleed into the Carroburg Crimson wash. So I might let that dry a bit more before I come and do maybe like a Nuln oil on there. And I've also been kind of trying to flip the model around a lot so that the wash doesn't pool too badly on either side of him. Keep it kind of flowing around. Kind of happy with how it looks on his jacket. Just keep it from puddling too much. I think I'm going to leave him face up like this so that the wash on the back of his jacket will stay in the creases. Maybe I'll set him so that he's raised up just a little bit on my keyboard. Alright, moving on to wash the next model. And I don't think I have much else to say about Rainbow Warriors, so we'll move on. Next up, alphabetically, I have the Raptors. Again, Raptors are a very unique Space Marine chapter. And their colors are kind of like army green. And they're known as like a chapter that specializes in jungle warfare. But they also have some other things about their tactics that make them sort of unique among the Space Marines. And first and foremost is that they operate kind of like a traditional Earth military in that they try to be very strategic, and they're not so much into like the honor of combat like most other chapters. So the Raptors
are known to like retreat when it's the tactically sound thing to do. I guess that's like the thing they're most known for, is retreating. But also the fact that their armor is painted like basically kind of like a jungle green. It's almost like a camouflage, which kind of plays in, or goes along with their making tactically sound decisions. Their armor isn't painted like a crazy red or anything else that's going to make them stand out and get shot. And it kind of goes along with their jungle fighter reputation, the fact that they're kind of camouflaged. And their logo is like a white eagle. So I have to think that they're maybe a little bit inspired by the American military, which of course used like a army green for our uniforms up until the Vietnam War. And kind of a fun fact, actually, my uncle was the person who wrote the letter to the Secretary of Defense suggesting switching to camouflage and getting rid of the Army green uniforms during the Vietnam War. He was a Special Forces advisor and medic during the first part of the war, and his unit totally customized their own uniforms and created their own camouflage uniforms because they recognized the importance of camouflage. And so after that, and I think they received some citations for being like the best prepared for combat. So he thought it made sense that the whole army should adopt camouflage. So he wrote a letter, and he got a letter back saying, "We've reviewed your suggestion and think it's a great idea. And as soon as we finish going through the olive drab uniforms that we have on hand, we are going to take your suggestion and switch to camouflage." So kind of a cool claim to fame. Not his only one. He also helped make some big strides in flood preparedness here in the United States, especially in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma. But yeah, so back to the Raptors. They wear kind of like olive drab, I guess. They're known for jungle fighting and for making sound tactical decisions. And seemed like a pretty cool chapter. I know they have a lot of fans too. I've seen a few people online who have painted Raptors armies. And they're always quite cool looking because they do have the look of kind of like a realistic modern military, but also Space Marines. So if that's kind of like the style that you think would be cool, definitely think about the Raptors. Here's what I was talking about in terms of getting puddling. Gonna try and spread that wash out a little bit. That's good. This looks a little better. And usually when I do this, I do come back and do a second coat of the same color ink wash on this gray, which I may do later. All right, well, that's 2 guys washed. Here's the third one. Got to remember which order I painted them in, because I want to give each guy as much time to dry before I come back and do a wash on the yellow. So what do we, oops, there's a little bit of wash got loose. What do we have after the Raptors? The Red Hunters, one of my favorites. Now, at first I thought,
well, okay, so here's the deal with the Red Hunters. They're like a Space Marine chapter that's known to work with the Inquisition. And I like them for the same reason I like Marines Malevolent, which is the Inquisition is kind of known for harassing Imperial forces and sanctioning or sometimes even destroying other chapters of Space Marines and stuff, or other Imperial organizations. So the Red Hunters being a chapter of Space Marines that works directly with the Inquisition, or more or less works for the Inquisition, kind of gives them a good reason to come into conflict with other Imperial forces. So if you wanted to paint a Space Marine chapter that technically their goal is to hunt chaos and the forces of chaos, especially heretics. But if you wanted to play a Space Marine chapter that had good reason to fight other Space Marine chapters, Red Hunters would be another good one to consider. And they do paint their armor red, which is, I guess, where they get their name. And I don't know much about them besides that they work for the Inquisition, but I feel like that's about all you need to know about them. I don't know how well fleshed out they are or how much they show up in the books and lore, but ever since I've read about them, I have thought they seem like they would be a good one to paint, as long as you don't mind being the Inquisition, as they are kind of like sometimes bad guys. Nobody ever suspects the Inquisition. Is that it? Or no, they don't expect it. That's right. Okay. Alright, let's slap some wash on the icon. Not going to do the white tusks yet. I'm going to save those for same color wash as I do the yellow sepia wash. Actually, Agrax wouldn't look bad on yellow or these white bones, but I think the sepia looks a little better. All right, what's after Red Hunters? Red Scorpions. Ah, classic. So Red Scorpions have been around for a long time, and I believe Red Scorpions were actually created by Forge World, which is like Games Workshop's sister company or child company. I don't know exactly what the best way to describe it would be. But I think that back in the day, Forge World was more separate from Games Workshop, and Games Workshop, like, at some point either bought them or kind of combined with them in a more official way. But before that, I think that Forge World was a bit more independent from Games Workshop and more like almost like a fan company, where they somehow had permission to make models that were based on Games Workshop intellectual property, specifically huge models like Titans and super heavy tanks and that kind of thing, that basically were models that people wanted to see in the game, but Games Workshop wasn't interested in producing. So they're still kind of like a, what's the word? Like an artisan company that makes niche models. Can't quite think of the word I was going to use for it, but anyway, I think Red Scorpions were created by people at Forge World and somewhat independently of Games Workshop. And I have recently been shown a sort of a document about the Red Scorpions, which specifically calls them the Second Legion, which is one of the missing legions. So, at least according to someone, probably at Forge World, the Red Scorpions are one of the missing legions. So that's interesting. Are they the lost or the damned? Or is this just somebody's fantasy? Like, the same way that anyone at home could decide that their own homebrew Space Marine chapter is actually one of the Lost Legions. I guess Forge World, someone at Forge World did that same thing. Or maybe Red Scorpions really are one of the Lost Legions. I don't know how official you should take that. But still, it's cool to see. And the deal with the Red Scorpions is that they're like experts at the Codex Astartes. Every Red Scorpions Marine is supposedly a master of every battlefield role, like Assault Marine, Devastator, Tactical Marine, etc. As in, like, each Marine will master the Codex Astartes. I assume they, like, memorize it and put it into practice. And then the Red Scorpions are also, like, very much hostile to, like, any mutants or impurity, or I don't know about psychers. I assume that Red Scorpions still have their own librarians, but I can't say for sure. They have gray armor, and their logo or chapter badge is a red scorpion in a white circle. I think they're very cool looking. And that's about what I know about the Red Scorpions. I do like them. Alright, well, I think we're going to go ahead and put an ink wash now on the yellow bits and those white tusks on the other guy. Switching now to a Seraphim Sepia. Here's that ink wash I'm going to use. And you kind of see it's like got a little bit of a reddish hue to it too. So it's kind of orangey, but that'll work. It's like an orangey brown, I guess. Which is, yeah, just about right color wash for a yellow. And we're just going to go ahead and slap that on the top. It's a little bit reddish. A little bit more reddish than I would probably ideally want to use for this, but I think it looks all right. And that's about all I had to do there. Not a whole lot of yellow left on that guy. I do think I probably want to hit his head and forehead and face with a little bit of lighter pink once all the washes are dry. And I want to hit the back of his head with like a black wash for the mechanical bits there. Moving on to the next guy here. Same color wash. And moving on to the next Space Marine chapter. After Red Scorpions, we've got Red Templars and Red Wolves. I'm mentioning these guys together because as far as I can tell, they're just successor chapters of Black Templars and Space Wolves who paint their armor red. So if you like Red Marines and you don't want to play Blood Angels, and you happen to be a fan of Black Templars or Space Wolves and you want to do them red, there's a chapter for that. And you might want to go for Red Templars or Red Wolves. And that's about it for them. They seem like just sort of red reskin successor chapters of those. Alright, there's ink wash done on that. And I think we just got that one guy left to wash. Trying to decide which way I want to set this guy to dry. Probably face up. And this was the one I did the ink wash on most recently, so I want to be the most careful when I'm doing this wash, just to not have the Agrax Earthshade get all over the yellow. Wouldn't be a disaster, but it's not what I'm going for. And the back. Alright, are we finished with red chapters? Retributors. Alright. Retributors are probably a lot of people's favorite Space Marine chapter these days. They are a fan-created Space Marine chapter created by the animator who was creating Astartes, the fan animation, which has now been, I guess, purchased by Games Workshop. They made him some kind of deal where he would either cease and desist or else he would join their new animation project, Warhammer Plus, which is kind of like an app plus animations, I guess. And the Retributors are the chapter that is featured in the Astartes animation. And we do kind of figure out a little bit about them just from the animation, although there's like practically no talking. Maybe there is no talking in the whole animation. Can't remember. I can't remember any. And what we kind of gather about the Retributors is that they are not into a bunch of decoration and fancy stuff on their armor. They keep everything pretty basic looking, and their armor is very interesting color. It's like a kind of a gray, but it's like kind of a gray with some color mixed into it that's hard to put your finger on. Sometimes I feel like it's kind of a warm gray, and sometimes I feel like it's kind of a cool, kind of blue gray. But they're very cool looking. They have basically gray armor with maybe some kind of bronze trim. And they're sort of a no-nonsense chapter, I guess, and that's about all we can say about them, since there's not a lot of lore that's been revealed. Next up, we have the White Primaris I was thinking of earlier, that I've seen some really cool painting tutorials on, or one very cool painting tutorial. If you look up Rift Stalkers painting tutorial, you'll probably find it, and they are some very cool looking white Primaris, all Primaris chapter, and they're actually a successor chapter of the Raven Guard, strangely enough, although I would expect them to be White Scar's successor. And their thing is that they patrol the Great Rift across the galaxy. Does it have another name? But basically the Rift, which has cut the galaxy in two, they're the ones who kind of patrol it and try to find their way to get to planets that are cut off inside the Rift. And that's about all I know about them, but it's cool that they're associated with the new lore and the advancement of the lore, in that they're both all Primaris and they have a connection to the Great Rift. Just three left to mention. First of them is the Scythes of the Emperor. Scythes are a very kind of old school chapter that's been around forever, and they paint their armor black with yellow trim, and their chapter badge is, I believe it's like a Grim Reaper with a scythe riding on a horse or something, and it's pretty complex. And there's a very cool old painting of Scythes of the Emperor fighting against Tyranids in like a huge sewer or something. Just like an awesome battle scene, and I believe the artist who painted that just passed away this year. So look that up. Look him up if you haven't. He's a fantasy illustrator who's done a bunch of cool stuff from all kinds of different games and books and covers of stuff. I don't know his name off the top of my head. I'm sure I should, but look him up. and I don't know a whole lot about them. Scythes are not a chapter you see too much about, but they have been around for a while, so I'm sure they pop up in the lore here and there. Next, we got the Sons of Guilliman. So these are actually a firstborn chapter, although it would make sense to primerify them. I think they are quartered blue and white, so kind of similar to what was the other chapter that's blue and white quartered? Nova Marines, maybe? Yeah. Similar looking to Nova Marines, but with like a slightly different shade of blue. And Sons of Guilliman would have been a successor chapter that was created after the Horus Heresy from the Ultramarines. So they definitely go way back to, would that have been second founding, I believe, is what they call that. I don't know a lot about them, but since Guilliman is a model you can play in the game now, it'd be pretty cool to play him alongside a detachment of Sons of Guilliman. And the very last chapter I was going to bring up was the Storm Wardens. They are a chapter that's got kind of like a Scottish theme. I think even to the point that maybe they like wear kilts when they're not in armor. And they were also created by another company, kind of like the Blood Ravens. I think that they were created as part of a role-playing game. I didn't play it, so I don't know exactly which one it was, but I think maybe it was called Inquisitor or something like that. And I'm not super into them, like I'm also not super into the Blood Ravens, as I feel like they're not as Games Workshop official as the other chapters, in that they were created by some other company. But kind of cool if you want to have like a Scottish theme for your Space Marines. I think they have like blue and gray maybe as their colors. And that is my survey of less common Space Marine chapters. I might go into rare Space Marine chapters. I have made a list over the years of Space Marine chapters that I've never seen anybody paint, but I haven't updated it for the new Primaris, all Primaris Space Marine chapters, which are most of which I've also not seen anybody paint, just because they're more new, and also they're not first founding chapters or any of these really well-known ones. So I think sometimes less common that people are going to paint an all Primaris chapter, partly because they would have had to make that decision in the last few years. Well, there you have it. Those are some of the Space Marine chapters that I think are interesting, that are pretty well known, but not as popular as the first founding chapters, or as Crimson Fists or Black Templars, and some ones that you might think about painting or collecting. Probably Grey Knights and Death Watch didn't quite belong on this list. They could have gone on the first list with the first founding legions, or first founding chapters, or the original Space Marine legions. But yep, there you have it. I think the models are done. Maybe I'll put them on my spinner here. We'll go ahead and take a look at how they started here with the mini cam. All right, so this was before painting, and I'll set up my spinner to show off the final result. Gotta move my light down, reposition my camera. There we go.
second. Oh, it's not quite going to cut it. There we go. All right, switching to back to the painting cam to show off the final results. Here we have the painted Weird Vein Psyker squad for my G-Sealer Cult's Brood Brothers. I didn't come back and highlight the faces again. I may do that at some point. I may add another wash to the jackets to make them a little darker, but pretty happy with how they're looking. Certainly battle ready, and hopefully I'll get these guys on the table before too long for a game. Curious to see what they can do with Psychic Conclave, combining their psychic power with a Primaris Psyker, which is not a Primaris Space Marine, it's just the name of a Astra Militarum main Psyker. But there we go. Hope you enjoyed the painting stream. It was really fun to have Angerous Angel hop in and chat. And hopefully we'll get some actual games of 40k on the channel before too long. And see you tomorrow for probably more Weird Vein Psychers. I'm thinking I might try to power through the other 5 that I have to paint in the next 2 painting streams. Would be good to get these guys off my shelf, as they are a big squad that's been kind of daunting to paint. And then maybe I'll go back to some characters, or maybe I'll paint some other squads. I have a bunch of stuff on my painting table. I'll just give you a quick little preview. As I've got some, what are these guys? Aberrants. And some more Aberrants. And some Ogrins. All those are for my G-Sealer cults. Get that to focus. There you go. Using some War Machine Hordes models for those. And I have a few more characters for my G-Sealer cults. In the back left, you can see some more Weird Vein Psychers. Here's a Primaris Psyker. And here is my G-Sealer Cult Locus, my custom kit bash. And you can see pictures of all of these guys on my Instagram channel, Instagram page, which is Challenger Tabletop, just like the Twitch channel. And there you can see the horde of Gretchen that I've got to paint. And way over here, made a custom kit bash of a Biophagus, I don't know quite how to say that, on the left there. And then on the right, 3 Tech Priest Engine Seers. Really looking forward to painting those. And in black right behind them, squad of Neophytes. So you see I've got a ton of stuff to paint. Looking forward to keeping the painting stream going. It's been both good motivation to paint, but also been putting me in a good mood. So thanks for joining, and see you next time.